Welcome all to Beyond the Podium. I'm Bob Roll, joined by Christian Vandevelde. A monumental ride for monument number 4 of the season by the pre-race favorite, Tadej Pogacar, leaving nothing to doubt, Christian, about who's the very best in the business currently.
No, not at all. And by the way, becoming the second youngest rider ever to achieve 6 monuments during his career, of course, to, well, Eddie Merckx, right, Bob? I mean, it's pretty obvious every time you come up with any of these stats, it's Eddie. So only a year and a half behind, maybe a little bit more, but still, I mean, to come into this race as the biggest favorite by a long shot and then be able to perform like he did and tell everyone, hey, this is where I'm going. This is when I'm going to do it. This is how I'm going to do it. And what are you going to do about it? You have no recourse whatsoever. And actually, the best quote that I've seen thus far is from Mateusz Gelmos. It cost me my entire race trying to follow Tadej. If you come too close to the sun, you're going to get burned. It's exactly what he said in the follow, because he went deep on La Redoute trying to follow the wheel. And if he would have just done his own race, maybe he would have still been up there when it got dropped. But Tadej was heads and shoulders above the rest, as we expected. It's always a question of, anything could happen. Of course, you don't know how your body's going to respond. You haven't raced that much, blah, blah, blah. Nope, not at all. Dominant fashion yet again.
Well, at the start of the year, Strade Bianche, his first race, destroyed everybody, and even longer solo then, and then went from there to Catalunya. So when we watch Tadej race, the way he races, the races he gets prepared for, very rarely does he lose. And I think the team last year, realizing he was a little bit beyond his best because of how heavy his schedule was last spring, and so maybe not at his best in the Tour de France, exacerbated, of course, by the crash in this race last year, broke his wrist, so could not contend against Jonas Vingegaard in the Tour. So I think they put the brakes on him a little bit. The only way to do that is don't let him race. So he hasn't raced since Catalunya. He comes to Liège-Bastogne-Liège and destroys everybody. Very impressive ride from a great champion.
But, looking forward, the race program is heavy, isn't it, Bob? I mean, when you have the 2 Grand Tours back to back, I mean, of course, you could go to altitude in between the Giro and the Tour de France. I've done that in the past. It's not fun, but it does definitely work, and it's a necessity. Looking for the double here. I mean, first things first, obviously has to win the Giro, but all things point to good things approaching in May for Tadej in the Giro d'Italia, and then, of course, going to the Tour de France. So, hey, at first when he released his schedule of the year, I kind of thought that he was avoiding Jonas, to be honest with you, and almost having something that like, all right, well, I'm just going to focus on the Giro, and if I have good form, so be it in the Tour de France. Now, as we were speaking earlier and during the show, that it's unfortunately, I don't think he's going to be there. That being Jonas at the Tour de France, it's unlikely. Let's just say, of course, we'd love for him to be there. But yeah, I mean, now he's got a great opportunity. It makes it a lot easier for him for this possibility to become a little bit more real, doesn't it?
Absolutely. Let's take a look at some of the images from today. Some bad weather, but not on Tadej, but also some unfortunate crashes out on the race course, but incredibly cold in the upper 30s at the start of the day. It did get better, but it was a tough start of today's Liège-Bastogne-Liège.
Yeah, freezing cold weather, like it actually usually is. It's been warm in the past couple of years, but big crash. This was really touch and go for a while. More than half the peloton being stuck behind this pile up here, along with Pidcock and Mathieu van der Poel, and it took him a long time to get back. At one point in time, almost a minute and a half disadvantage. So definitely a lot of matches were being lit. So it made it even more impressive to see what Matthew did later on in this race. But that was not an easy chase whatsoever, was it, Bob? I mean, they did as much as they possibly could. Pidcock maybe got a little bit stressed out and maybe went a little bit too hard on the Stocko, trying to go by himself. Same thing goes with Kevin Vermark a little bit later. And here's the attack here by Pidcock, trying to pretty much go by himself, panicking. And Van der Poel, smart enough to realize, like, hey, I'm just strength in numbers. I'm going to stay around the boys as much as possible and bring my way back up into the group, which they initially did, or they obviously did a little bit later on, but it took them 10, 20K of pulling.
Sunshine coming out, going back behind the clouds. Van der Poel, a lot of work on the back foot. Unfortunate crash here in the Movistar rider Canal. Obviously dropping out. Haven't heard from the team what the extent of his injuries, if any, there are. But on La Redoute, as promised, Tadej Pogacar just shelling the field. And Carapaz got to the wheel for a moment, Christian, but like Skelmo said, that was the end of their day. Both of them not factoring in the finale. Carapaz a little bit better than Skelmos, but that just shows you how incredibly talented and ready for the fight. Tadej Pogacar not to be bettered by anyone. Bardet, the best of the rest. An impressive ride by Romain Bardet, in my estimation.
Oh, incredible ride. I mean, this is a rider who's been in and around to the podium, but never been able to achieve it. And he's another rider who's looking forward to the Giro d'Italia. And it's an emotional win, by the way. Pointing to the heavens for his partner Erska's mother, who passed away 2 years ago to the day. And then, of course, him trying to win it last year, breaking his wrist. So it's been 2 years in the making, coming back to this. And Romain Bardet, 33 years of age, which is, in this day and age, quite old to be still up on the podium. And look at this beast of a human being right here. Mathieu van der Poel taking a sprint for best of the rest from the front. Not easy to do, especially after you've been racing flat out for 6 hours. So Mathieu van der Poel, you know, utmost respect for him even showing up for this race. Is not easy for a body composition like Matthew, 14,500 feet of climbing over the day. And not to mention that, just such a heavy program that he's had. You mentioned how the only way to keep Teddy back is not let him race. Same thing goes with Van der Poel. This guy races flat out. The way he won is pretty much the same fashion as Tadej did on the cobblestones.
Well, we've starting to get used to these long solo wins by the dominant riders. It's been a while. Milano-San Remo, maybe not as hard as it could be, but maybe that's better for the racing because we saw a pretty big group coming to the finish line together. That taken out by Van der Poel's teammate, Philipsen. But today, Tadej Pogacar going from distance as he said he would do. I'm kind of lamenting that Remco, who won the last two editions in similar fashion, wasn't there. But otherwise, not surprised that Tadej was at his very best and destroyed everybody today. Great to watch. Monumental win in a monument. But Van der Poel, Bardet did their best to limit the damage. But when a rider like Tadej Pogacar, and it seems like to me, Christian, you know what you need to do to give yourself the best chance to win. So if you're Van der Poel in Paris Roubaix or Tour of Flanders, go from a long ways out. See who can come with you, reassess. If nobody can, all the better. Go all the way to the line by yourself.
Yeah, I mean, if you have the capabilities, which, let's be honest, not many people do, if at all.
Right.
And so if you think of Van der Poel's a great example of this, Wout van Aert not being there. And if we're going to this race here today, like you mentioned, Remco not being there and Jonas not being there, Primoz not being there, those are the kind of guys, the only people we could think of who could ever match that kind of acceleration that aren't on pure form right now. So it's all about preparation, of course. Everyone's preparing for different races and have bigger, different outcomes throughout the course of the year. Majority of the riders, 99% of them, are all focused on the Tour de France. So being able to walk away from the opposition is a lot harder, obviously, there. But nonetheless, I mean, everyone knew what was happening. He told them, he did the Babe Ruth, I'm going here, then there, and this is how I'm going to do it. And maybe even went earlier than I expected on La Redoute itself. And like you said, Carapaz is the only one who could come remotely close, Bob, and really just riding his own race all the way to the finish line, almost 2 minutes ahead. I mean, we thought that Remco, the way he did it in dominant fashion, was a big deal. It was 30 seconds more than Remco did. Hold my beer, buddy. I'm going to go a lot deeper. And I took it easy the whole way in.
Mathieu van der Poel didn't have a great Amstel. I think maybe he was riding so well in the earlier spring classics, Flanders and Roubaix, maybe got a little bit ahead of himself, did admit these races don't suit his physiology perfectly, the hillier Ardennes classics. Maybe he might change his program in the future. If he does dominate the cobble classics, will not be doing the Ardennes. As long as Tadej Pogacar is still breathing, might not be a better idea to reassess Mathieu van der Poel. Impressive to get third, but the circumstances weren't perfect, obviously having a long chase in the middle of the race, but still don't see him matching Tadej on the La Redoute and all the way to the finish line today. That's for sure.
No, not today, but he did equal. And I think you might know this, but you know, the last person to do this, what he's done, being on the podium in 3 monuments in 1 year in the spring.
Was that Edissimo, the greatest of all time?
No, you were actually
the
there.
latest?
Bob. You were there. It was 86.
86. Moreno, Argentine?
His father, Adri, was the last
No.
person. Yes, the last person to podium in 3 monuments. Podium. So it's not the wins. It's podium.
Oh, okay. I thought.
Yeah,
Okay.
Podium. Yeah. So the last person to the podium 3 times was 1986, and it was his father. So now his dad can't hold anything over him anymore. Nothing. Not that he could much before.
I mean,
Well,
to
you were
win
there.
4 monuments
you
in
got
the
to
spring,
witness.
I think.
Yeah. So sorry, Bob. Yeah, you did win for anything. I mean, what they've done already. And you bring up a good point with going to do the Hillier classes. We already know one of the most spectacular wins of all time, what Matthew did at Amstel Gold Race a few years ago. Incredible.
Yes,
So
that
he
was awesome.
obviously, we know that he could win that. And I think he really just had his eye off the ball that day, to be honest with you. I don't think he was completely emotionally ready to be fighting for the best and maybe gambling just a little bit. But today, massive respect. I mean, not that he needed the respect of us anymore. I mean, he's such a champ. He's an incredible bike rider, but to do what he did and to go as deep as he did. And I like the conversation between Tadej and Matthew at the finish line. Well, what are you doing next? Well, you know, it's like the typical bike racer talk. It's like the only conversation we could ever have. Oh, what's next on your program? Well, next one. So what are you going? I'm going to Monaco. He's like, how about you going back home or going to Spain? No, I'm going to Dubai. I'm going on holidays. I'm out of here. So I like that he's out. I mean, and well deserved, right? I mean, he's been able to keep it together for a long time, all the way from Milan San Remo to now, and that's not easy to do. But I like what he did and the tactics that he used away from the races, flying back to Spain throughout the course of the week, every week after Flanders, after Roubaix, making sure that he's always in nice weather that makes it just emotionally and physically a lot easier on himself. Okay, it's not easy to fly back and forth, of course. It's a lot easier to just drive home, but being able to train underneath the sunshine, especially with the weather that we've seen in the last couple of weeks, he obviously made the right call.
Well, I like the conversation that they had, and for Mathieu van der Poel, vacation #1 priority, but Tadej, his biggest objective of the season, at least at the start of the year, the Giro d'Italia coming up, the Giro, he looks solid for that, but what do you reckon doing the double? It doesn't seem to be possible in modern cycling, but if anybody could do it, Tadej Pogacar could be the man.
Yeah, I don't disagree with you. I'm never going to write him off. That's for sure. If there's anybody, as long as continues to be able to race without sickness and in good health, no big crashes, things like that. That's the problem with racing. Of course, you expose yourself to things that are out of your control all the time, every day,
right?
And especially in a race like the Giro d'Italia. So, I mean, if everything goes well, I mean, the next conversation, he looks over to Romain Bardet. He's like, well, I guess we're going to the Giro together. And he's like, oh, and he's like, Romain is like, oh my goodness, I don't even want to think about it. And I was like, oh, it's going to be fun. He's like, well, yeah, maybe fun for you, Tadej, as you stomp us for 21 days in a row. But, Romain Bardet, again, we didn't speak enough about him. I don't think, I mean, what he's done over the course of his career to be able to have almost a 5th gear that he's been able to put into. He looks great to be on the podium at the Giro d'Italia as well. I mean, he's never done what he's done today. So that's great. But back to your question, though, whether or not Tadej could do the double, why not, dude? Why not? And I would love to see it. I mean, he's a fantastic champion. The way he holds himself, the way he interacts with the fans, seemingly having truly a good time as well. Of course, when things go completely sideways, it's never fun for anyone. But Tadej, it seems like that's really the reason why he continues to do so well, is that he truly is happy. He's having a good time. Yeah. I mean, this is a game. This is a game to him.
He loves it. He loves it. He loves every minute. He loves it. He knows. It's funny. He has this ability to know what everybody else is going through also. So he's certainly paying attention to not just what he has to do, but he's asking Mathieu van der Poel what his schedule is, Romain Bardet, and he's internalizing all of those things. It's very impressive. His sound bites, the way he races, obviously, but just his awareness, his engagement with the sport is unbelievable. Tadej Pogacar is a very special bike racer. Anybody special enough to beat him in the Giro d'Italia, Christian? What about Garrett? Garrett's riding great, winner of the Tour de France in 2018, second last year. Maybe Geraint Thomas, Roman Bardet.
I mean, yeah, Geraint
least-
Thomas is a great one. I mean, he came, honestly, Geraint Thomas rode out of his skin last year, how well he was coming up against Primož Roglic, who came so close within seconds coming into the stage number 20, the time trial. So Geraint, I mean, if he could put it together again, he's went through a very hard stage race, the Tour of the Alps, just this last week, along with Roman Bardet. And Roman Bardet looked a lot better than Geraint Thomas. So if I'm going to say Geraint Thomas or Roman Bardet, for example, I'm saying Roman Bardet all day long as it stands today. But Geraint, you know, he's one of those guys. He loves when people write him off because they write him off like I'm kind of doing right now, but I'm going to stop short of that just because I've known G for so long and he has the ability to step up to the plate when need be. He's tried to do it again, though. He got a little bit, let's say, a little greedy last year trying to go for the Vuelta, and that obviously did not turn out well for him. But the Giro d'Italia, hats off. I mean, he's deep into his career, one of the oldest riders in the peloton, and he doesn't need to prove anything anymore. He would love to get another win, but yeah, he's going to be going head to head. And it's funny to see on social media. I don't know if you've ever followed him. He's always calling, I think he calls him a little bastard, Geraint to Tadej, and then Tadej's always ribbing him going back. And so it's pretty funny to see.
It's good banter, that's for sure.
Yeah, it is. It's lighthearted, right? You know, and it doesn't happen too often with guys, champions of that status as well. So we'll see. But if I'm answering truthfully, Bob, that can anyone take him down a notch? No, I don't see that unless something happens. Yeah.
Yeah. And we'll see. It seems like Tadej will be rampaging all over the Giro d'Italia. Any chance he throttles it back a little bit in hopes of being just at his best for the Tour de France?
That's a good conversation to have, and that's the problem. Like, and you brought it up perfectly. Like, the only way to cool this dude down is to put him on the sidelines. Hey, you got to go home. You got to chill out. You know, because even in training, they say that he gets almost too fit too quickly just because he has the ability to push himself so deeply. Same thing goes in. We saw that in Catalonia. You know, and that was, if anything, like, whoa, dude. Easy. And it's not just because of you, it's because of the team. So if you're going to put the boys on the front over and over and over again, they're not like you. They not going to be able to withstand that punishment day after day. And then who's going to be left for you at the Tour de France? But, you know, most of those guys, they have such a deep team that they'll have reserves. You know, they have an embarrassment of riches on that team for being able to field two teams. But that's a great question, Bob. You know, how many stages is he going to go for? Is he going to be frothing at the mouth and just continuously want to just destroy everybody? Yeah, he most likely will be. You know, you're going to have to really calm him down at times and say, all right, we're winning by 7 minutes, for example. We don't need to be winning by 9 or 10 or 12. Let's just chill out and think about July. I mean, that's excessive, but I mean, it could be by a pretty decent margin, you know, if he races like today.
Yeah. Prophetic. He won 4 stages out of 7 in Catalonia and just barely missed 5 stages out of 7 because he was angry at stage 1, not getting his sprint perfect. But our next rendezvous with racing is the Dauphiné, big preparatory race for the Tour de France, generally speaking. But that's on Peacock. But on Beyond the Podium, we'll be following weekly all of the racing between now and then, especially the Giro d'Italia, and that's going to be very fascinating. But Dauphiné is next, and then the Tour de France, obviously. But in the meantime, on Beyond the Podium, the Giro d'Italia. Both of us have a pretty special history with that race, so I'm looking forward to having a chance to talk about it in the meantime, which we haven't had a chance to do for many years on the current power structure the way it is set up. But we're going to try to rectify that in the years to come, hopefully. Fingers crossed, but stoked for Beyond the Podium between now and the Tour de France for sure.
It's a race I love to hate, that's for sure. Love and hate, it's equal. I'm sure you have a little bit of the same thing. Definitely more love than hate, but ooh, man, it's a rough
takes a lot out of you.
Oh God. And Bob, real quick though, I know that the beard looks amazing. There's been a lot of comments on the beard. I'm used to seeing it because I see you over the wintertime. So it's not as much of a shock for myself. I'm used to it, like I said, but I would love to see that in the Tour de France. I mean, can we start a petition? Maybe people sign, like, let's get a long list. Would you like to have it? Would you like to have it in July, or is it too much for you?
Too hot. I got to cool down.
Too hot.
Keep it. Yeah.
Yeah,
Although
comment below if you want Bob to keep that beard. I know maybe we'll slow him down on the bike as well.
I'll tell you, the pillows aren't great in France, and this I could roll up and sleep on. It could see a little bit extra padding, so maybe I will. Depends on if there's overwhelming support for that. I'll think about it.
All right. Comment below. Keep the beard. Keep the beard. Keep the beard.
God.
Let's go.
All righty. Everybody, thank you very much for joining us. We'll see you soon.
See you, buddy.
For all your cycling content year-round, subscribe to NBC Sports YouTube page. We got it all.